Today I want to talk about Berserk as an expression of horror, more freely, without a script. The first point that I have is that horror unfolds in the presence of companionship in Berserk. It's always the case that someone sacrifices another human being, loved one, a friend, or someone else that they hold dear, and they turn into apostles. It is an expression of egoism. It's the highest point of suffering for an individual, and in these cases, in the apostles' cases, they try to alleviate this pain that they have at the cost of many other humans. So the individual becomes more important in those cases than the whole. And of course it is horror, because loved ones that you trusted, that they trusted you, they come onto the chopping board. It is quite scary what a human being can achieve and could want if they had the power. Then in the manga, a second point about horror in Berserk is that the solitude that mostly Guts experiences, or we see that he experiences, is a quiet expression of dread. Guts later, after the eclipse, cannot sleep. He's living a nightmare. He cannot sleep more than a couple of minutes at a time because many monsters, apostles and ghosts haunt him. Because he has the sacrificial mark. He has survived something that he shouldn't have. So he cannot sleep. He has to fight off everything that comes at him, and not only those abominations, and even humans come for him because he is the representation of something evil. He is the harbinger of all those creatures that want to feed upon humans. And of course it is understandable that they would cast him out into exile and would want to hunt him down, and he becomes a legend as the Black Swordsman. So he has those horrible nightmares, which many of us could relate to in the modern world. However, nightmares you can wake up from. Guts lives through it, and some people do live nightmarish lives, but in Guts' case it's quite extreme, because he has to struggle for his life, hour by hour. He's constantly surviving in the wild, no help, no friends, at the start at least. It's not easy, it's quite exhausting. This part about tiredness and exhaustion is also one further point about horror. You have to constantly fight for yourself, and this just drains you. It's horrible on the mind and the body. And what can you do about it? You have only a couple emotions that can spring up in your psyche in order to help you. It's something like wrath, anger, vengefulness, sadness, depression. Not many things work in that case. You are surrounded by nobody that you would like to be surrounded by. So you're in a constant state of shock. On to the next point. The Berserk Road is a hyperbole of life and its horrors. This point is a culmination of all the previous points. It's a summary of all the exhaustion, all the nightmares, all the struggles, all the hopeless nights that Guts experiences. They are built up in a hyperbolic way in the story, and it's always catching. As we said, it seems to be otherworldly because we ourselves do not have such monsters in front of our eyes the same way Guts has, but we can feel and sense that something is similar, and we understand the horror. We understand the monsters, we understand Guts and his experiences. However crazy and wild that might seem, it could be compared maybe to a mythological saga or mythological story, or maybe a religious story about the fight between demons, between gods, between giants and humans. And the people understand these stories and feel the horror, the heroism in them, and so do we attach to Guts. In Berserk, human desire is deeply intertwined with the ugliness of its world. Many people in the world of Berserk have this nihilistic view of the world. They do not see the value of anything. They see that war is destroying their homes, taking the lives of their loved ones, and it's never easy for them. So the world is built in such a way by Kentaro Miura, the mangaka, that the idea of evil is born, that something justifies all the pain that humans experience in the world. It's a belief, it's a common subconscious belief of the masses that it builds up this monstrous entity, so much so that it becomes real, tangible, because of the belief. And it's not to say that it's fake or superficial, this whole conjuring of this entity that only brings evil into the world and apostles and sacrificial rites. No, it is quite real. The same way religion is real for someone who believes in it. Kentaro Miura just chooses to embody it in something and give power to some other people who are choosing or are chosen to take a walk on this path of godliness at the cost of someone else's life. In Berserk, there is constantly a hidden layer of distress behind all the golden age's grandioseness and happiness. It's quite well hidden in the depths of the psyche and the world's matter, and often just a simple human choice leads to the unleashing of the otherworldly. In this case, in Berserk's case, it's Griffith. And these people, the higher they rise, the harder they fall. And they are not in particular protected from this horror. They are actually a bit inclined, more inclined than other characters, to taste it, this horror, this evil, and maybe even lead it. Once everything goes down, they lead the charge of the evil forces because they want to stay in the grip of the power. They do not want to lose touch of it. And that's what Griffith does. He utilizes any means possible that he can use to attain his goal. In the end, when the terrible horror is unleashed upon the people, you do not look up to those that were famous, rich, and in power, because they are most likely allied to that what's going to kill you. There's most likely a hidden hero that's coming to save the world and maybe even search for his own vengeance and achieve his own agendas, because we are all human. So even though Berserk is a work of fiction, we see a lot of realities in it. We see them unconsciously, and that's why we like it. It's drawn to us, it's familiar, and the horror of it is desirable to see. How someone like Guts, a main character, would experience it, deal with it, and how the story would end.